Yep.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 24th episode of Concerned Dabs podcast. I'm your host, Katie M. Kane. With me shortly will be my co-host, Will Terps. Tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen, we have Eric from Dungeons Vault Genetics. Can you hear us, Eric? Are you with
I can
us?
hear you. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, man, no doubt, no doubt. We're excited to have you on the show, man. Super
Excited
big
to be
fan of
here.
your work.
Thank
Northwest
you.
Weapon. You know what I mean? Like it just feels good to see people from our region succeeding in the industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there's quite a few of us out here, man. Honestly.
Yeah, and I was a musician in my younger days, so uh, I don't have anything against California, but it just always seemed like those guys were kind of snobby. Like they thought, and even with the weed stuff too. So I feel like an obligation to bring the talent, bring my A game whenever I'm doing some work. So
Uh,
yeah.
I'm actually hometown is Sacramento, California.
Oh, really? Cool,
Yep.
man. That's tight.
Yeah, I was
That's
out there for 19 years before I moved up here.
no doubt, man. My uncle that I worked for in Seattle, bro. That's where he moved from too.
Yep, born and raised.
That's tight, dude. Tight. So yeah, that's where I he had mad indoor game, and I was able to soak that up, and that's where he got all that from was California. So
Yeah, there's some fire out there for sure.
yeah, and then genetics wise too, I feel like a lot of the fire genetics originally came from there, but it's dope to see people in our region that are breeding some fire shit
No,
right now.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
before I was even knowing like all the different strain names, there was guys out there in Cali that were giving me stuff that to this day I've never seen anything like it.
yeah,
Kind of like the old school strains that they're just gone and forgotten about.
yeah, man. Everything's cookies are glued nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So, you're based out of Washington State, correct?
Yep, that's where I'm staying right now. I've been up here since 2003. Like I said, I left California, came up here, and I kind of found my niche. It was really me. I mean, coming from California, you mentioned some people being kind of snobby, and it comes to the weed game. That was definitely me. I mean, I came up here with an opinion on pot. Like I knew what I wanted to see, and it took me a while. I mean, I'd literally pull people aside in parking lots leaving Albertsons. Hey, you got any ganja? just any way I could do it because I had no connections up here. I came up here not knowing anybody but my family, so it was really hard to find some good weed. We was tons of BC, stuff coming across the border,
Yeah,
pre
yeah,
pre pre uh 9/11 shit. So, or I know,
yeah.
excuse me, it was after that, but either way, a couple
Smelling
years
like
after.
hay, smelling
Yeah,
like hay and shit.
straight up, there was just a
Yeah,
beast. I mean, it was AAA. There was some good stuff, but I mean, there was just no smell,
yeah, man. It
no
makes me
smell.
wonder what they were doing up there. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no,
was it the
I
same
think
guy growing everything up there? You know?
I think they are packed just like when you got. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced getting compressed weed out of Mexico, but that was what I was smoking on back when I was a kid. My
Yep,
first experience.
yeah,
Other than, I mean, I had a neighbor that had good green bud too, but I mean, I was really like I was around people that they were stealing parents' stash or whatever. And we had Mexican compressed weed, and that shit always had the same kind of smell. And I think it just has to do with the packaging and the fact that no one's really caring about the end game. It's really just throw it in a thing, compress it, or pack it up as quickly as possible and send it out. So,
yeah.
like maybe more of a plastic smell or something. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was gross.
No doubt, no doubt, dude. So, how did you decide on breeding as you're trading cannabis? Like when did you start? Did you
Man,
start growing first or what?
oh yeah, no, I've always been. I had a neighbor who now works for Disney, and he really put me on to the good weed. He was a kid that was always into. He had High Times magazines laying around, and so I was seeing weed that I'd never seen before, and I was like, "What is this?" And that's really what turned me on to the different strains was seeing them talk about stuff in there and showing all the Dutch coffee shop stuff and everything. So I kind of at that point was just super interested in it, and I'd collect seeds from pot or from just along the way, people were throwing it out, and so I'd take it, and I had a bunch that I'd sprout, and I'd show people it and talk about it and whatever. I just didn't know what I was doing, so it never really was a success till later on down the line when I got some outdoor stuff going. But um, I really didn't get successful with indoor growing until like way later in my adulthood, and
Mm-hmm.
then once I got more responsible and learned the ropes. But I feel like the breeding game kind of found me. Like I was doing everything I could when I moved up to Washington to um, just have my foot in the game and find good weed, and eventually I got my medical card and was running around trying to you know get a job doing anything I could in that field,
Yeah.
and ended up running into somebody who turned me on to candidate granddaddy, and I did that whole thing for a while, and that whole thing worked out to me, you know, breeding for him, and that ended up sending me on my way to what I'm doing today. But yeah, I
So
mean, I really
you worked for that guy that bred the granddaddy perp?
nah, well, yeah, yes and no. So I worked for him, but he did not breed GDP. That's folklore.
Okay.
It's a common misconception. There's a ton of strains out there that kind of get you know they have someone taking claim to um, being the creator of it when they had absolutely no part in it whatsoever. And that's in that case, I feel with everything that we know now, and if you talk to certain people that are a lot older than me, they can tell you the same thing. He was more or less someone who carried the torch, and so to speak. Like he brought GDP into some circles, I guess.
Okay.
But I still feel like there was very similar strains, or something very close to it that was around before him. But regardless, he still, a ton of people say, "Hey, Ken made GDP." No, he didn't. He was more or less someone who was just gifted a clone, and then made it popular with some good marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's crazy. I did not know that.
I've yeah. Will's tuned in now. We got Will now on the show,
Yeah.
Eric. Yeah.
What's up, man?
How's
And
it
then
going, man?
Good.
I feel like a lot of strains too. It's like dudes just picked a pheno from some seeds they cracked and called it something else. You know what I mean?
Well, and even if you did do that, I mean, if you found a seed, whether it be bag seed or, um, well, I guess if it was someone's breed already, then you probably shouldn't be making any claim toward any sort of creation of it. But if you find a good bag seed, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze,
All good.
or not. But if you find something that you like, then cool. But he had no part in any of
No doubt.
that. Excuse me, sorry.
No worries.
So you were working for him, and then when did you decide to start your own project?
Man, it was he kind of put me onto that. We had some issues out in California. We had a big, like 120 light warehouse in Oakland, California,
Damn.
and he had. I mean, this was before any of this recreational cannabis took place. This was all medical. So,
Yeah.
um, there was we had big stuff going on out there, and I was just getting on with helping them out with stuff right when they were shutting that place down, and there was just a lot of controversy surrounding the brand Granddaddy Perp, and then a collective out in Richmond, California, and just a lot of stuff that was just all going bad. So his people sort of left him, like literally, like every person that was working for him except for a few people that were super loyal. I mean, including myself, stuck around.
Yeah.
I wasn't in California, so I didn't have any sort of legal ramifications that were coming from anything that had to do with their branding. But regardless, I stuck around, and then he's handicapped. A lot of people think that this guy's in the garden doing stuff. Ken is in a wheelchair, and he's not able to use his hands
Ah.
as well as he as most people. So he can't really be doing much gardening at all. So
Damn.
he needed some help, and that's where I kind of stepped in and was like, well, you know what, I can do it. You already know, you trust me with my knowledge on ganja, and just in general as far as my selection process and what I'm looking for in cannabis, and what he was really trying to take the brand to another level, and I was right there for the whole ride. It was awesome. I mean, it was a great learning lesson, I'll say that. But
Yeah.
I at the same time, while I was living it up and seeing everything that you'd want to see in really big brand in the cannabis scene, I was learning everything that I didn't want to do and all the
Ye-
stuff that was,
Same,
mistakes that people
same.
made, and watching things happen that I was like, well, I know what not to do next time, and just
Yeah,
stuff like that that really helped build my confidence and my just overall outlook on how this is all playing out now.
no doubt, man. I feel the same way when I work for my uncle in Seattle. I got to see a really big operation and work through each process and see where shit was fucking up too. And saved me a lot of time and money, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no
Yeah,
doubt. It's good to experience any of the stuff, whether it's positive or negative, because it really just shows you, whether it's just a learning experience altogether, really.
no doubt, no doubt. So, can you talk about some of your cultivation methods? Like, are you a soil guy?
No, actually, I've been doing coco core for years now. So
Okay,
now I used to really swear by small pots and cocoa. That way you could water a lot and have multiple waterings. But now, even with the bigger pot, I'm noticing I think I get healthier plants, and with the drip systems going on, there's just so many things that we're doing nowadays that I wasn't doing before that I'm finding are better.
word,
So cocoa core all the way. I use Mills nutrients. They've been taking care of me for years now. So shout out to Mills.
word.
I really like it. Some people, I mean, if you're not a salt guy, then there's no reason to even talk about it. Obviously you've made your choices, but if you are someone that uses um, synthetic newts and stuff that out the bottle, then it is definitely a super easy 4-part total, including your silica. But really, just I've had nothing but great results. So
No
I
doubt.
love it.
Mills
And then
pays
as
the
far as
bills.
yeah, absolutely, man. And then as far as plant growth and just any sort of tips and not really, man. I do what everyone else does. I mean, I like to pinch and top, and what I really used to do, and I want to do more of is LST. Low stress train. I really wish I could. I do a lot of trellis growing, so I don't really end up having time to be bending over the plants all different directions, like from the early on and tying it down. But if I was growing in straight pots like I used to, um, individual plants, I would definitely be trying to do the bending it and down and like and forming that S and getting as many tops as possible.
I
You know,
agree.
I loved doing that. That it just created such a cool looking plant. But now
Yeah,
it's mostly just just pinching here and there and trying to. I mean, same thing.
yeah,
Mimicking, trying to get as many tops as possible so I can fill in that canopy.
yeah. Well, man, I had 2017, man. I had the it was like humble pie. I think there's a couple other ones from you that I ran, but I cut clones of a couple because we cracked the seeds, and then my homie had a grow at his house like 12 plants, and then we had a spot out in Sandy. But he was like, "What are you doing?" When I was doing that, because I was trying to bend it and make that S. So I was like explaining it to him, like, "Bro, there'll be more tops if you do it." Like, he's like, "Man, why don't you just?" I'm like, "Dude, because if I cut off your finger, if you could regenerate it, it would still take a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
But
the
it's
number
like
one thing.
if I just bent it, then it can grow more." And he was just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it does create. I mean, it doesn't really slow you down at all. It's kind of
Yeah,
nice that way.
yeah, man, and it did increase yield and made shit look proper. And there was one of those humble pies that didn't show balls until like July, and it was like super huge. And I was hoping it was gonna just yield like 2 or 3 packs, and ended up being a male. So I gave it to my homie Smiley, and he's been using it. So he wanted me to tell you. He's like, "Man, tell that guy I've been using that humble pie mill." He's like, "Good
Oh,
job on
yep,
that shit." I was
yep,
like, "All
yep.
right."
I think I met him at Indo Expo actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did. He posted a pic. Yeah, he's a big fan too, man. I like that guy. He was my breeding homie who I'd give my males to. What about your breeding methods? Can you talk about that at all? Like, do you are you like a paintbrush guy? Do you just switch the whole plan over the female, or are you still there, Eric? Oh dang, maybe his audio cut out. Are you there, Will? Can you hear me, Will?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you all see me? My video is actually not lagging for once. Like it's still,
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
at least it looks, it's live to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't hear Eric. He might have cut out, it seems.
All right. Okay, let me send him a message.
Yeah, hit him up. I was about to say, like, see if he can like exit out and restart.
Yeah. All right. How's it been going at work, Will?
Great.
All
Super
right.
good. Yeah. I'm off today, but yeah.
Days off rule, man.
We got pretty
There we
much
go. Can you
like
hear me?
within a month
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah. We can hear you now, man.
I don't know what the hell,
Sweet.
dude. I don't know. My phone starts playing music, and you guys couldn't hear me. I don't know. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, all good, all good. My next question was, can you talk about some of your breeding methods? Like,
Yeah,
are
so
you
I heard that. I don't know. So I started to respond, but I think I started to cut out. So basically, when I first started doing it, I was totally using paintbrush method. That's all. That was what I was doing. I'd paint each individual bud site, and kind of just walk around doing that.
yeah,
But that was, I mean, that seemed like it worked. It was efficient. I got a lot of seeds out of that. But I think what I ended up doing and what I found to be a little bit more proficient was just walking around with the male and kind of like that tapping in, just watching it float throughout the room.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So there's a lot more. I mean, I get a lot more coverage. I feel like everything gets dusted, and surprisingly, you really don't need to have like. I mean, I think I've never really like tested how much pollen I'm releasing per breed, but you can really you get plenty. You get
no
plenty.
doubt.
So.
Yeah, and then so you don't so you take the male and let it pollinate everything. You don't collect the pollen from the male.
No, I mean, if I plan on keeping the male, I'd usually already have a clone of it, so I don't worry about saving pollen. Whatever pollen I have is on the plant is being used then, and then I just discard it.
That's tight. That seems safe too, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's keeping males around can be a little bit sketchy, especially if you have multiple. But I mean, there's ways to hold them without having anything drop and being okay with it. But I usually stick to one male at a time.
That's dope, man. Man, that's awesome. Cause like I've been to Smiley's house and he's shown me a couple things, but these are always the questions I have about the process. You know what I mean? Cause I've had males drop pollen when they're in veg, and I was shitting myself because I didn't know what to fucking do and if everything was gonna have seeds. My cousin was just like, "Yo, as long as there's not a bunch of pistols showing on your females, you should be okay. You know, you got a couple
Yeah, for the
months before."
most part, but that stuff surprisingly likes to stick around for a while. So
Yeah, yeah, man. Um,
Yeah, I got a question for you, Eric, real quick. What do you think about? Because I see a lot of breeders nowadays, and I don't want to name any names, but a lot of breeders are taking a selected male, whether they've selected over a year or just a few rounds, and throwing it in like they're throwing it into elite females pretty much, and then not testing out what they're breeding pretty much, and then just putting it up for sale for like premium prices on the market. I've seen a lot of that lately. Do you have, like do you have any opinion on that or any?
I think that Instagram has built a breeding ground for breeders. There is so much people looking to just have something new, people. I just saw seeds for sale on fucking eBay the other day. Like literally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
seeds are on eBay. Like they were like $25. So whoever's selling those, good for you. But you're fucking desperate. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, if any seed bank wanted to mess with you, they'd be buying your seed. Simple as that, dude. So you have to. I mean, you have to go to eBay to try and sell it to people. That's cool. But I guess there's some sort of business side of that where it's like, well, good for you, you're making money. But that's if he's making money. I personally think that if you're gonna have any sort of breeding project going, this goes for myself or anybody that's just getting started. Uh, you have to either you've got to have some sort of guarantee. Whether I've put stuff out that was untested before, but it wasn't put out. Uh, on seed bank. Like I've let people buy it before I've released it, type of thing, or I have let people know, hey, these haven't been ran yet, so just so we've seen what most of my stuff does, but yada yada yada. If you
Totally.
if you're gonna put your work out there and be charging a premium price, like you said, or anything for that matter, um, at least be forthcoming with what it is, or don't do it at all. Because if you're trying to act like um, you are testing these seeds and you're being put out on the market, then I hope you have a good policy as far as replacement goes. Because if there's any complaints whatsoever, there'll be hell to pay. There's a lot of people that are quick to pull out the pitchfork and come running at you for whether it be seed germination issues or uh, even light colored seeds. I've had people hit me up and say, yo, I bought this pack of seeds and these seeds are light. And I'm like, okay, have you fucking popped them yet? Like, why don't
Yeah.
you grow them, bro? Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But there's you can't please everybody, but if you're gonna be taking someone's hard-earned money, you should at least try to you know yeah, just at least be honest. Let them know what's going on. But I don't think you should be selling seeds that if they haven't been tested at all, being put out on the market, unless it's just from you personally, then cool. But or you have a deal with the seed bank where there's some sort of release going. I don't know. That's a hard one, but
No, totally.
there's a lot of people that are just doing that, dude. I mean, yeah, like you said, I'm not mentioning any names either, but I know for sure there's a lot of people that, as quickly as they can, get those seeds shucked from those buds and put them in some packaging or whatever they're doing, they are for sale quick. And I know for a fact they didn't test them. So, or even,
Yeah.
so it's really, I don't know if it's just like it's just kind of a game. But if you got to remember though, if you take your money and you're willing to pay that person for that, then I don't really know, man. It's kind of like,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, no
Yeah.
one else to blame but yourself if you got any issues there.
Exactly.
No
Exactly.
doubt.
I'm not a grower myself, but yeah, and like I said, not naming any names, but it's just like like extensive menus of just basically like the same male thrown into a bunch of elite strains, just like this cross with Girl Scout, this cross with OG Kush, this cross with you know I don't Blackberry Kush. I don't know. It's just
Well,
like
but you
this,
know what?
the same male.
To touch on that, dude, here's the thing, because I did it before where I had, a couple of different males going on in a breed, where in my drop had, this male and that male, and the breed was done at the same time. There was different. There was the pollen wasn't being introduced at the same time, but within the same place, and
Totally.
that can be sketchy, man. I mean, let's just say that. I mean, I that was years back, but let's just say that there was some issue where um, there was some cross pollination going on there. If you buy certain seeds that are said to be this, and then you start getting something else that has absolutely nothing to do with the description that I just sold you, then
Yeah.
again you're gonna have unhappy customers. So,
Yeah.
while you may see that as, look at this fucking pollen chucker, he's got 30 killer females, but he's got the same male. Well, that actually is in my eyes, that's probably a better thing, because you know that he only had that one male there. He only had pollen from one male. So depending on the person, that could be a good thing. And I think that sometimes, like for instance, when I had my grandpa's breath male and I was breeding with it, that thing was gold, bro. So I knew for a fact, right when I had it, I was like, this thing is going to be killer. The first drops, everything that started getting grown was killer. So I knew right then and there, okay, this was a good choice. I mean, I knew I was winning right there.
Yeah,
Right.
So
dude.
I guess my just thing is like, like each, the same male is gonna react differently to if you're throwing it into like 30 different females. and
Yeah.
this person was selling, each of those crosses was like a huge list of like 30 different elite females that he had thrown this his male pollen into, and they were all like super expensive prices. So like I get it, I get like the fact that you got a male that is good, is stable, and you want to like see how it does with the variety of strains, but like you know I don't know, testing that out on like customers and letting them pick up kind of like your first trial at, like throwing your this, I mean, maybe it's not the first trial, but I don't know. There's just such an extensive list of females that he had, hit with this male's pollen that I just I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know how the price was justified, but that's just me. And I'm not a breeder. I don't know much about it, so just
People are
my
gonna
opinion.
they're gonna get called out for it, man. People, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're putting seeds out there, someone's gonna be growing them shortly, and especially some of these guys that are getting into commercial side of things. Like, so I know a guy, for instance, this summer who bought a ton of seed and a lot from each individual breeder. So he got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly from multiple different people. So when you ask
Yeah.
him his opinion on some of these breeders, he'll be like, "Huh," and he'll say breeder, and he'll just talk shit, but he's got good
Right.
reason to. He had, yeah, I mean, for instance, I I mean, everybody, I don't care who you are. If you put out seeds and you say you've never had anybody complain about a hermaphrodite or you've never had any intersex traits in your work, you're fucking lying. There's
Word.
no way. So,
Yeah.
but I've seen a lot less of those traits pop up outdoors. For some reason, you could have a plant that goes completely just just nuts, like literally throwing pollen and just, oh my god, fucking cut that thing down. But that same plant could go outside and do absolutely incredible. So it's really weird. Nature's got a
Huh.
funny way of doing things, and I think it really just depends on the environment. Well, I mean, I know it depends on environment, but um, indoors can really be funny, and sometimes while I'm not breeding specifically for any strain of mine to be, oh, this one's indoor and this one's outdoor. I remember seed banks back in the day that had them like that. They were listed as these are indoor seeds, those are outdoor seeds, and it's
Huh.
kind of like that's where you grow them. You kind of just follow the code. But now I think we're just all over the place with stuff, and we've kind of, I mean, breeding now is a lot different than it was before. Some people are still really respecting those old school roots. I mean, I'm trying to do as good as I can. I think we all want to put out the best stuff we can and make fire strains, but I think that's just it. Fire strains and making, killer stuff that people want to smoke is is cool and all, but I mean there's a lot of people that are doing it and a lot of people that can do it. I think it's just, it really depends on what you're putting out, and if it really your work will speak for itself.
Yeah. Like Green Source
Absolutely.
Gardens, they have a breeding program, Green Source, and they sell seeds, and I know that they're no-till outdoor, and so they breed outdoor. But I've never seen anybody crack their seeds and run them indoors and see what it looked like. You know what I mean? It's,
No, they're more I feel like outdoor seeds.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just thinking back on that. The God, brain fart.
It's all good, Will. It's all
I'll have
good.
to I'll have to come back to it, but
Okay, yeah. One of my next
yeah.
cookie cutter questions, Eric, is how do you feel about genetic sequencing from companies like Phylos Bioscience?
Oh no. Yeah, those guys are the devil. The
Yeah.
that turned
Yep.
out to be such a horrible like nightmare of a deal. Like, while everybody shows up, we all show up to these events, we meet people, we shake hands, we get past business cards, we are entertained by people, we are um introduced to tons of people. We think everyone's got good intentions, or you'd like to think so, but
Yeah.
you don't ever think anyone is literally looking you right in your eyes and I'm gonna fuck you so hard. But that's exactly what those guys did, and they literally, they had, I mean, they had me on the line, and I never once went out to lunch with them. I never once turned anything in. I never gave them shit. But I know for a fact that, I still get emails today that are like, oh, hey, I bought a bunch of your seeds and I turned them in through Phylos and I got some grail. I'm like, oh no, fuck. And I really need to put a
Fuck.
disclaimer on the back that says, I mean, if you don't use those people, I would almost give you a free pack of seeds. I mean, I would, anybody but them. They are so bad. And if you're
They're the
not,
worst.
yeah, and if you're not familiar with that whole story, because I know for a fact there's people that are like, "Well, why are they so bad?" Or explaining what's going on. Do yourself a favor, check out Instagram and go find Sun Grown Mids and look that guy up, and you'll go back and see all the stuff that he's put up, whether it's video, documentation. There is so much public released stuff that it's mind blowing, and it'll really just make you sick when you see these people talk. And I mean, the same goes for some of these people that work for Canacon. I'll never do another Canacon show. I don't care how much money was ever generated by my seeds from that show. I won't ever do it again based on what that guy was on an interview talking about, basically saying that, you know, us home growers and people that helped build this whole entire um, scene up don't deserve to have you know, we don't deserve to have a business. We don't deserve to be in recreational cannabis unless we've got, you know, a bunch of money, or we came from, you know, suits and ties or college degrees or whatever. And it's like, go fuck yourself, man. We're the ones that you're basically using all of our intellectual property, and everything we've done is just a, we've paved the way for these people now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we've been to jail for this, man.
no, absolutely, bro.
You know what I mean?
Some of us are still in jail for this stuff, and
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And backtracking a bit, I remember what I wanted to say a bit ago. Back on the breeding aspect is there were a lot of people that um Jesus, like fucking brain fart central here. All right,
God,
someone keep going.
God damn it, Will. God damn it. It's all good. It's all good.
I'm
Um,
sorry. I'm like I
my
had a
next
crazy day today.
my next question, what what do you look for when you're starting a new project, Eric? Like what as far as the creativity part of it and inspiration, like I like that grandpa's breath, bro. Like when I smelled that shit, it was insane. It like smelled like fucking hospital smell, bro. I was like, what the
Uh,
fuck? You know what I
there's
mean? I was
there's
like, I've never smelled weed like that before. So I dig the terpene profile the most, but some folks go for bag appeal or whatever. So what's up with you, dude? What floats your boat?
well, in regards to like a new project or what I'm thinking about and stuff like that, I kind of like, I mean, the market kind of speaks for us in a way. Like, I mean, I don't strictly go off of what other people want to see, but I mean, I mean, if I only did projects that I liked and that I thought people would dig, I could end up not selling, you know, nearly as much seed as you do by putting something out that is relevant, that people are talking about. That's I mean, even these hype strains, you know, runts. I've got runts cross right now that as soon as it's ready to go, that'll be huge. But what's so funny about that is by the time I'm done testing this runts cross, there's going to be like 10 new strains that's, you know, circulating that everybody's talking about smoking, and it's crazy. It's like we as breeders want to put stuff out that people are going to enjoy, and
Yeah,
that like I said is what people are asking about. um I stopped doing Southern California shows because every time I was down there, I swear 90% of the people that came by my booth would ask for OG Kush, and if you didn't have OG Kush, they just keep walking. Oh, I have a cross. No, I don't care about crosses. I want OG Kush, and if you didn't have it, they'd walk away. I have other
damn.
people that show up looking for, you know, the top 10 list from High Times. You know, is whatever strains they think are the best ones, and they come over asking for Blue Dream, and it's like, you know, I try and tell them there's nothing wrong with that strain, but there are
Yeah,
so many other ones that are great that you're losing out if you're strictly looking for what some magazine told you to smoke. You know, you got to smell it, smell the flower, look at it, smoke it, you know, get educated. There's more out there than just 10 that you want, I
yeah,
promise. So
yeah,
it's just funny, man. But for me particularly, bro, not only just looking at what the market is asking for, but I stick to what I've already done. So I've got strains that I've already made a name for myself with. Grandpa's Breath. That one's been huge. That one finally sold out after, you know, it's I've had the F2s for a couple of years now, but I've got Swamp Thing. I've got, you know, the Lost Soul. There's Purple Vapor. Some of those ones that have been sold out for a little while. Those will be new releases at some point. and then crosses with those, you know what I mean? Stuff like that where I'm just using some of my own males and some females that we found from, you know, some generous people that have shared cuts with us, or you know, even our own selections. Regardless, it's I know I can drop something like that because it's already been so popular, and if I cross the two together, I'm gonna have something that's pretty much a winner because we've had such good success with most everything we've dropped. You know, I mean, I've really been, you know, blessed when it comes to this because I feel there's been a lot of winning combinations that have just really been great in many people's gardens.
No doubt, dude. I agree. I haven't even tried everything, but like I remember seeing you post about the Palpatine, and that was Grandpa's breath crossed with something else. What was
The
the other?
Death Star.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that name is fucking
Fuck yeah.
sick, dude.
Yeah,
You know what I
Senator
mean? I'm like,
Palpatine,
man,
bro.
it's like the old man from fucking Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's dude, like that was dope. I thought that
And
was
it really, it just makes sense. And so there's the creative factor to it with some of my names. I really try and, like, why everybody loves these strains that sound like something you find in a candy aisle or in the fucking bakery, and that's all
yeah,
good because it sounds appealing. Or if it's something that sounds great to drink on a hot summer day, you better believe it's something we want to check out. But there's you know, Palpatine, for instance, like, dude's on the Death Star and he's some old man. So I mean, Death Star times Grandpa's breath, it kind of just goes together. I have no
yeah,
idea what his family history is, if he has children. I wasn't that much of a Star Wars nerd, but I thought it was, you know, super creative, and a lot of my strains kind of go in that route. I try and find ways to throw stuff together that makes sense if you really think about it.
yeah.
So
I'm digging it, bro. Like for real. Like it's that's man. That's why I put that on the flyer too. Is like creativity in cannabis breeding because there is a lot of people doing it and not a lot of originality. You know.
or it's simple to just throw like two words together. I mean, while sometimes that works, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, that actually sounds cool. It flows. And there's actually a term for that. I forget what it's called, but when you put two words together and make it a single word, it actually, you know, comes a new word. It sounds good, but it sometimes it's just so uncreative. It's sad.
Yeah, dude. Seriously, I was doing intake at Human Collective in Portland one time. It was an old lady. She was like a grandma, and she had done some breeding, and the name for her strain that she brought in was like UB7, UB71 or something. Uh, I'm like, what does that stand for? And she's like, I don't know, I just thought it sounded like a cool name. I'm like, all right,
It's like a
you're gonna,
mechanical thing.
dude, yeah. And I'm like, you're gonna consign it? And she was like, yeah. So she just floated it to us, and we put it on the shelf, and it did not sell, bro. You know what I mean? She came back 2 weeks later, and we
Damn.
had like $100 for her. You know what I mean? So
Well,
it's
and
just
that right there is exactly why, depending on, like, we didn't even touch on that, but some of my strains, while I think I'm being creative, it falls on deaf ears with a lot of people. Like, one of my strains, Ode V, like, it's the water of life, and
we're
that's actually it's a cognac, and a brandy
ah
wine cognac is that, and that's what's in it. It's underdog times brandy wine is the Eau de Vie. So again, thinking it's gonna be a creative name, some people are just scratching their heads like, I can't even fucking pronounce that name, let alone it doesn't sound good, and my
yeah,
local dispensary is not buying that. They want wedding cake.
yeah. We
So
gotta we gotta find a rapper to make a song titled that,
yeah,
man.
yeah, exactly. Well, it was funny. Uh, Two Chains was on most expensivest, and they had this episode, and they were actually talking about most expensive bottle of cognac was this. I think it was like 75 years old or or however old it was. It was an Eau de Vie, but it was special.
Ah,
I
tight.
meant to post that so people could actually kind of get hit, but they'll have to do
Yeah,
their own
yeah.
research.
That would be a good reference. Two Chains is real
Yeah,
pop.
there you go.
Yeah,
Uh,
we
I
gotta
don't
get
mean
him on
to
the show.
backtrack, but I finally fucking remember what
Oh
my
God, here we
brain
go.
All right,
farted
well, let's
twice
hear it,
on.
well.
Yep.
Here we go. Third time's a charm.
Um, third time's a charm, right? There we go. But basically, what I wanted to touch on with the breeder I was talking about earlier, the Oregon breeder that did some not so great work in my opinion, was that he threw um a single strain, like I said, was saying he threw a single strain into a bunch of elite females, and this was about 2 years ago on the Oregon market, and a bunch of like rec producers, a bunch of like medical gardens at the time, like bought into it. Like I knew a ton of farms, like the homies from a ton of farms in Oregon that bought their seeds, and I literally see like zero strains from that run that he bred like on the market today. Like there's
No
nothing from
keepers.
that. Yeah, no keepers. Maybe
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
someone out there I'm missing, but I feel like that entire huge drop that this person like had a whole huge extensive menu for, like these strains aren't even like you can't even purchase them on the recreational market, and they were
All
like
right. Well, here's what I'll say to that. I have a feeling that in some cases, because I see this all the time, people are treating seeds like baseball cards, bro. They are buying these strains up, and they are literally sitting in their freaking
stashing
refrigerator
them away.
or in their Tupperware
True.
jar or in their mommy's fridge, whatever spot where she holds their stuff
I
for
feel
them,
that. I feel that.
and they're not getting popped for years. And I've had guys sit there and tell me, "Oh, I still have a pack of those." I'm like, "Bro, those are 4 years old now. What? Grow them? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like either
Yeah.
grow them
Yeah,
or
yeah, that's true. That's
I'll
true.
buy them back. I'll give you some fresh seeds for your old one just so I can keep. I mean, I'll pop them now or get them going because something like that either needs to see the market or there's a reason why it isn't. You know what I mean? So it's either people are hoarding these seeds, and I have a feeling I know who you're talking about. We're still not going to mention any names, but I feel like
Right, right.
in that case, I really feel like there's a lot of people buying stuff, and while there's, but you just said there's you know people that bought a bunch of them and they grew them out, and just you still didn't see much anything of it or what?
Yeah, and not that I can assume that, like, that they popped all of them and they went through them and like didn't find any keepers, but I know that like this particular breeder, like when they dropped this, it was like super hot and everyone was after, a pack or two of the seed drop, and I just haven't
Yeah, I got some
seen
of those.
the, you know. I feel
I
like you
still
know who I'm talking about too, which is great.
I do. It's all
Talking
good, man. I know exactly who you're talking about.
about.
Yeah, man. I think
Yep.
there's a situation out there where a lot of people are seed hoarders. You know what I mean? They literally are buying
Yeah,
these things
no,
up
absolutely.
and they're like unlike my seeds, like mine come with this little collector card, a little cartoon figure, whatever. They literally look like baseball cards, and I just found out you can actually they are exact size of a baseball card as my artist did them. They can slide right into those little plastic sleeves like when you used to collect your cards back in the day. So it's
Yeah.
perfect. But literally people are it's like a game, it's Pokemon. You got to collect them all.
I
So they're
agree.
going and they're
Yeah,
hitting up
yep.
these limited drops and buying up all these seeds. They're not even freaking growing them.
Yeah, your card stock is the shit too,
I
bro. Like
appreciate that, man.
the
It's I
packaging, the
Yeah.
graphics, whoever your logo guy is, I'm like, man, that shit looks sick every time.
That's 420 friendly illustrations for anybody looking to get a logo done.
Okay. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm impressed every single time. Like the humble pie, like that, like everything just it looked sick, man. Like
That's the only strain I've seen in flower form that you've bred, and it was super bomb. Like, wow. But
We got to
I don't know
change.
why. Like, I know, yeah, man. I don't know why. Like, I mean, Oregon's sleeping or something.
No, you know
Like I
what?
don't know.
I don't know where exactly you're at, but I was just in archive this weekend on Saturday, and uh,
Okay, archive. I need to stop by archive. I'm in Portland, so.
yeah, well, it used to be Benson Elvis. Now it's Benson Arbor. He has a ton of
Mhm.
stuff, and so they have some of his flour, and I think it was. I don't know if they actually had Swamp Thing flour, but they had Swamp Thing pre rolls and something else going on. And then I know Dirty Arm Farm messes with my Bavarian Cream, and there's a couple other people. But
what?
the
Oh,
Oregon
that's
market,
you. Okay.
Damn.
I've definitely
All
put
right.
I've put a ton of seeds out there, but I'm still like even like that person we're both that you're talking about. I'm like I've sold a ton of seeds to Oregon. Why am I not seeing them? I know it's. I mean, is it they're not
No,
trying
no,
to tell the
but
truth?
but
I
Wait,
don't.
so
now realizing that I'm naive too, because now I realize like Bavarian Cream and the others, like I'm just not hip. I didn't never realize that was your work. Like so, but yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
but
Yeah, no,
but
I've
Yeah,
seen the
that but
Bavarian cream.
that's a cookies and cream times Grandpa's breath. So that one was just a hash
Ooh,
monster.
damn, dude.
heck yeah,
But
that's
so
awesome.
Benson Elvis ran your shit outside this summer.
I believe he did. Yeah, he was doing. I don't know how well he did with it, but I know for a fact that the past few years he's done really well with everything of mine.
Fuck,
He's
Did
done.
dude.
did did he do it last year? What other strains that Benson has run that are yours? Because I've smoked a bunch of
Me too, dude.
Benson and Echo
I like
collabs,
his
so I've
list
Oh
probably
yeah,
too.
so
smoked some.
you've had them.
Uh,
So Citrus Farmer, Swamp Thing, Purple Vapor, Purple Champagne,
yep, purple
Lost
champagne.
Soul.
I've had
Yeah.
that. Yep, yep.
There's quite a
Heck yeah,
few. I
man,
mean,
that's awesome.
I gave I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, but one of the owners of Benson, he got so much of my seed. So I mean, they're still. I think he's still sitting on a bunch of stuff. But I mean, he's told me before that nowadays, man, especially in Oregon, you got to really be careful what you're growing and how much seed you're popping, because if you don't have like your
Yeah,
selections down, you don't have a full hoop of it, or at least a lot of it to put into that, excuse me, if you don't have a lot of it to put into a single lot of flour, it's just kind of, you're fucking yourself. You got to have a lot of it. So
yeah,
he's got his selections that he's done really well with. And I mean, I don't know if he's still bringing up anything new, but I'd sure like to get him some new stuff. But either way, seeing him, seeing my work in Oregon at all is great, but I want to see more of it for sure.
No doubt. I'm a big
yeah.
fan
No,
of Dirty
totally.
Arm
I
too.
remember yeah, and we picked up too, like a year, like probably a year and a half ago at Natural Wonders. We picked up the purple champagne from Benson, and that like the other two strains we had from him at the moment, like that shit sold so fast. Like they were all about, like Benson, he grows a lot, like a good amount of volume but also quality, so he can sell like super high quality flour at like a cheaper price, and people were just like super stoked on it, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, yeah, man. And another thing, I think, depending on who the grower is, I know that it really does matter, but he grows great outdoor flower, dude. I've had a
Hell
lot of his
yeah.
outdoor flower that
He
I was
really does.
Hell
He
super
yeah.
really
stoked
does.
on. Specifically, I mean, obviously anything of mine, but now I'm just sounding like I'm doing a sales pitch. But South Fork seeds, there. I think it's the South Fork Kush number 56 that he puts out. Whoo, straight gas.
Yeah.
So
Word.
that one's
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, yeah. Plug whatever you wish, Eric, man.
Yeah, just the homies, man.
Yeah. Now.
Only people I can speak on, man. People that I know that I can mess with, and people that have quality product. I will not lie, but I'm not going to say anything about something that I don't know or I don't have experience with.
Yeah. We
Totally. I mean,
appreciate that, dude.
now I'm intrigued though. The Bavarian cream. I'm gonna search out one of those grams and swoop one of those up. I'm intrigued. That
They got
sounds
them right
good.
now. It's
You said.
the haters tiers. It's a
Yep.
Bavarian cream. I forget. Yeah, 68% THC and I forget exactly how many terps.
Woo.
It's nice. It was a nice little gram I got from them.
Hell
Heck
yeah.
yeah. And you said it was Grandpa's breath and cookies and cream, right?
Yes.
See, dude, that's
Nice.
sick,
Heck
man.
yeah.
Oh, that man, that's before I go to my next cookie cutter question. I remember seeing a post one time where you were talking about OG Kush breath and
Oh yeah.
how you thought like it was difficult to get more seeds out of it because there's less pistils because of the nug structure and stuff. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so that specifically, I think a lot of us found out breeding with it. I mean, I was one of the first people. I mean, me, Gage Green, Archive, and then I know there might have been a couple other people, but we were really the first to hit market with any OGKB crosses.
Hmm.
I think it started with the Mindo breath and the Grateful
Yeah.
breath, and then I really wish I wouldn't have done that. I would have wished I would have come up with my own thing, but I did the Grandpa's breath, and then Archive had their do-si do, but we're all real similar in those strains as far as what we have, but the OGKB, I never released an F1 of it, of a Grandpa's breath, because the pollination just sucked, man. I mean, and then yeah, whether it was because of the lack of pistils or not, I don't really know if that was truly the issue. I mean, as I've thought about it more, and as I've grown a little bit more. I think that it really just is a plant that some plants just don't pollinate that great. I don't know. I don't know really what the cause is, but that one in particularly just wasn't um, too accepting of the pollen, I guess would be the best way of saying it. But um, that's why F2s were dropped, but just not the F1s. There was not enough seed, and those seeds that did come even out of the F2, we had a lot of people that said, they got this mutant style plant, but that's kind of how the OGKB grew. And if you ever had the real one, then you'd know it grows like a freaking turtle. It's just super slow, kind of short, and in the same amount of time it takes you to veg that thing out to be a somewhat acceptable size of what you would think could be a good yielding plant, you could almost get a couple harvests in on your other strains.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really just, I mean,
slow
lemon
veg.
tree is the same way. It's very, very slow. So
That's I remember when I worked for my uncle in Seattle, like he had a warehouse and his basement turned out, and then we were at the Northwest Cannabis Market. We were at Rainier Beach and White Center, and when cookies was hot, I kept trying to tell him to like, fuck, you gotta throw this in rotation, dude. Like you could do some nice work with it, and that's why he didn't. He was just like, man, that shit takes too long to fucking veg. And then he said even bloom too. He's like, man, that shit'll take like at least 3 more weeks than everything else I have in my rotation.
are you specifically talking about OGKB?
No, it was cookies then. It
Oh,
was Girl Scout cookies.
see man. See, 'cause that's crazy because the regular cookies grows just fine. That one, I mean, we were. While some people were saying it wasn't yielding, you just all we were figuring out was you just had to throw more plants into the mix. But even since then, we've all kind of figured out, other tricks of the trade and got it to yield decently. But either way, those two plants, just regular cookies, and then the OGKB, just absolute night and day difference.
No doubt. And so is most of your stuff derivative from that OGKB that you started with then too, or what?
Yeah. So basically, that plant in itself, the Grandpa's Breath, was what started it all. I mean, I still had leftover stuff from my breeding days with Kin, so I rebranded and kind of, started my own thing. But what I ran into trouble with was everyone saying, well, wait a minute here. You've got these strains and Kin's got those strains. So who's the, who's the breeder, da, 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 and it created a bunch of headaches. So that's when when I really moved on to the new breed and started the Grandpa's Breath project. That kind of opened the door for everything. And then you mentioned Humble Pie, and then some of the other ones we talked about, Swamp Thing, False Teeth, Lost Soul, even that Bavarian Cream, which is the second generation Grandpa's Breath that breed that we did. But uh, there was what I found is I kind of wanted to move away from that a little bit further because everything is cookies now. Everything, we started this conversation with, everything is cookies, 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 and it's
Yeah.
while it makes great offspring, it's kind of nice to see something different. And there's nothing more exciting for me to crack a jar and smell something that I haven't smelled in a while, or smell something that reminds me of like high school days.
Yeah.
So
No
um,
doubt.
but yeah, no, and now I mean everything that I have, even to this day, is gonna have a little bit of Girl Scout in there, whether it's the OGKB or whatever. But it's just cookies.
Yeah.
OGKB, just a sister of Thin Mint.
No doubt. Okay, so my next question, I'm gonna flip them around in the order. So, what do you feel was your biggest mistake on the path to where you're at right now?
Probably, honestly, running my mouth.
Okay.
Honestly, like I think letting my mouth get in the way of business has cost me, and also I just think that there's such a fine line between what's supposed to be said um, in a private, setting, and then in front of other people to hear. I mean, I think some stuff is really just drama that doesn't need to be aired out for anybody, and it can be really handled between two grown men or even a group of people. But it's
Yeah.
just there's a lot of that these days, and I found myself finding being caught in the middle of it, and it's just unnecessary. So that, I think, is probably the biggest mistake. Other than that, I think from a breeding standpoint, we touched on it earlier, but names, man, names of strains can be detrimental. You take all the time out to make something special. You spend money on packaging and artwork and doing all this stuff and having some breed, and then to find out that it's just not really hitting home with people. You know what I mean? Whether it's the name that they're really just not feeling, or it's the cross, but the end result is, I mean, if it was a blind test or they saw the buds, they'd probably buy the weed with, I mean, regardless of what it's named. But strains, just like you said, UB71, you know, eh. But you walk into your average dispensary and you see Tahoe OG Kush, or you see, I mean, fill in the blank, anything.
Yeah.
As long as it's something we've heard about, whether it's in a hip hop song or something we've seen on Instagram advertised a bunch, that, or just something even our homies grown out that was fire. We got to see. It's got to have some sort of, face value, not just. I mean, even looks. I mean, people can pass it up on looks just because they're looking for strictly, strain X. Whatever it
Yeah.
is, they have to have that one, and they
Yeah.
don't care
Yep.
about anything but that one, and that's just how it is.
Yeah. As a bud tender too,
Did
some
you?
people would really be looking for a certain strain, and I'd be like, "This is related to it. This is that strain you're looking for is a parent of this. This might work," and they would go for that. You know what I mean? But there is like some people really want that fucking sour diesel, and I'm like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
not just that." But
Did you grow up on the East Coast, Eric, or did you grow up on the West Coast?
No, I'm a Sacramento, California native. I was born and raised out there till 2003.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
you missed
nice,
the first
nice.
part of the show, Will. You missed the first part.
Yeah, my bad. I missed that part. Yeah, I just wonder because I always one of my favorite strains is sour diesel, and I've always heard a crazy strain or a crazy story about like how that came about. Like, so my parents live in Western Mass now, and there's this like rumor of it going through like UMass or whatever, and I don't know. It's always been like a rumor to me, and I don't know if like Eric had any insight on that. Like,
Specifically on that, I really should have a little bit more knowledge when it comes to all the different strains. But while some people have spent a lot of their times reading on the forums and on the different message boards and what have you, um, I just don't. I mean, I know for a fact that the there's a couple different, there's the East Coast sour diesel cut. There's the New York
yep,
sour diesel. I don't know if those two are the exact same plant, or if they're just something, that, a little bit one off from one another. And then, I mean, we've all saw the New York diesel that was from Soma, which has zero affiliation
yep.
to sour diesel that you're looking for, that
No,
you're.
exactly. Yep.
And I think that the whole thing with Mass, I have a feeling that and I could be wrong here, so don't quote me on this, but I thought that the Mass Super Skunk might have had some affiliation with the sour diesel. I'm not
That's
sure.
what I thought too.
One way or
Yeah, I just
another,
didn't know.
the whole Kim Dog, OG Kush, sour diesel, that whole thing, they're all, I feel like, some sort of, in the same realm, as far as, there's just a little bit of a little missed history on them. Some people can really speak on it, but then again, it's all just, a story that some people, have, and we weren't there for it, so we don't know. I mean,
Right, right.
I'm 36 years
That's
old,
true.
so I wasn't there for the Dead shows, and I didn't follow any of that stuff till, I really, my, like, again, my adulthood, I started really getting into it and trying to figure out all this genetic history and, all that stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that, unless you were there, you don't know.
Word.
True. Very true. Very true.
Okay, so the flip side of that coin on that question, Eric, is what do you feel is your smartest move on the path to where you're at right?
Breaking away from the other company, those guys I was working with, was really bringing me down. There's some people to this day that still think that I did something wrong by, leaving them and or Ken and that whole situation. But they, yeah, again, it just like I just said on the strain thing, they weren't there, so they don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this day and age, dude, if you have someone who's treating you unfairly, who's ripping you off, who's not giving you the credit you deserve, and or if you just don't really feel like you're getting the value that you're putting out, then it's time to move on, dude. And that's really where I'm at. I mean, I took off back in 2014 after all of our, issues, and I was really just tired of being the customer service line. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be the guy on those message boards. I would be the one on Instagram. I would be the one at even face to face at Cannabis Cup, where somebody would walk up and be like, "What the fuck, man?" And I'd have to sit there and come up with an answer and be like, hey, we're really sorry. How can we, what we can do to fix this or remedy the situation? And there was a lot of shadiness going on with that whole thing. So I've talked about it in one of my other podcasts. I don't know if you heard it, but there was just a lot of lies and things going on behind my back that really just left me with a foul taste in my mouth. So I've just I'm glad I moved on, and that's where I'm at today. Is I've become successful with my brand, and I don't really have any regrets whatsoever. I don't think I did anything wrong with moving on, and how I moved on was just in my eyes pretty much the best way I could have done it.
Yeah, man. I agree. I agree. Like sometimes, like I'll stick around if people treat me good, but after a while, the situation just gets unbearable, and it's like, man, I want to do something else.
Exactly, bro.
And
It's
it's
just
like, yeah, doing your own thing is always the best thing for me.
yep. Got to look after yourself, dude. That's first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree, Eric. I agree. Good advice.
Absolutely.
Um, so what sort of ideas would you like to promote for the future, Eric?
Man, I mean, I don't know who's all listening, but anybody out there, we are trying to expand. We're trying to go into other states, whether it be working into the recreational market with another people, or just licensing our brand. We're really trying to get out there and team up with some people that are willing to give us some solid space in their facility. Believe in the brand and kind of um, pretty much really just sign a deal and see where it gets us. But I really feel we have a value to add to any brand out there willing to work with us. We are trying to really just become established in every legal state we can, and really, get our genetics in everyone's gardens. But obviously, the legal way is really just that's where we're at, man. That's where everything is coming to at this point.
Yeah, man, I agree. I like to make moves on paper and shit. Um, oh, dude, that's one, and maybe it's controversial if you don't want to talk about it. But I remember seeing you post one time about going to Nevada and working with a company out there,
Oh God,
and
yeah.
they
No, I
just,
I
yeah.
gotta know
Can you
what
talk
this.
about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's no problem. So basically, that right there is a perfect example of what you don't want to have happen. I mean, that was a licensing deal gone wrong. Basically, the number one thing that I should have done and that people should do is you really need to do your due diligence and see who's going to be representing your brand. We had I flew out there. I worked with these guys. They had the most amazing rooms. I mean, you walked into the place; it was completely empty, and they had every room was dialed in. I mean, it looked like NASA build. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful.
Damn.
I mean, everything top notch, just killer. But you can have the most expensive equipment as you want. You put one idiot in your facility that's going to run your place that doesn't know shit, and it all goes down the drain.
Yeah.
He literally was growing. I've it was horrible results. He had powdered mildew everywhere. He was walking around at the Emerald Cup show, giving out bags of weed to people with physical powder mildew all over the bud. And I
Fuck.
was like, "This is, are you for real, bro?" And he told me that whatever he didn't sell was just gonna get put to oil.
Fuck.
So just one of those guys that willing to
Damn.
take. He's truly believes in the mold to gold regimen.
Well, dude, and then I remember in your post too. You said after you left, they tried to peel the names off your strains and stuff too, right?
Oh, they definitely did. I've been waiting. I mean, I don't know why I haven't done this yet, but I don't think there's like a what's it called, a statute of limitations, but I have a certain amount of time. I'm not sure, but uh they definitely it's all traceability down there. You know what I mean? Just like seed to sale. So they had an agreement with me to sever the contract, or if the contract was severed, they would get rid of all my strains. They wouldn't be growing anymore. That's the whole deal. Is they were being given these genetics to grow, and if they weren't going to pay me, then they were going to get rid of them. So they were putting stuff out to market. They were getting paid for their product. They never gave me a check. And then on top of that, we severed our contract, and they continued to grow them. And I've got a picture of them with a blackboard up where they're changing all the strain names. So
Yeah, that's what the post was, bro.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
guys, that was High Sierra Holistic, HSH, Nevada.
Okay. I won't
So
shop with them, bro.
yeah, fuck those guys. But you know what, dude? That was years ago at this point. So I've moved on. I mean, it's still a legal thing. I could totally take him to court and we could do that. But I mean, it's going to cost me money. And the only reason I would do it is just to, just to be like, fuck you too. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I don't like thieves, bro. I mean, this day and age,
I agree.
it's everything's above table. And if we're going to have a handshake, that's your word right there, man.
Yeah, I agree.
So
That, yeah, getting jacked sucks, man, especially
yeah,
when
pretty much. And I for some reason can hold a fucking event on how not to have that happen because it's happened a lot. So
same, same. How to spot the signs,
yeah,
when to
exactly.
see it coming.
What
You know what
not
I
to do? Yeah, I got you. I'll be the
Yeah,
poster child.
fucking A, man. Same, same. All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, Eric? Like, I worked through most of my questions here. I want to have you plug your social media and stuff at the end, but is there anything else that you want to talk about, dude?
No, you know, man, I think you got a lot of it covered. Honestly, I want people to yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked us out, try to. You know what I mean? I mean, I know seeds cost a lot of money, so you're putting a lot of faith into $100, $150 pack of seeds. So you gotta kind of trust that it's gonna give you what you're hoping for, and I hope that we can do that for most people. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some fire waiting for you in our packs. We're always looking to expand our fan base and get people turned on to the Dungeons Vault brand. So yeah, man, check us out on Instagram, and overall, just yeah, we appreciate all the support and all the love that everyone gives us, and just keep growing the brand. We'll keep on putting out fire.
No doubt, man. And then do you
Heck
have any
yeah.
stores specifically that you've worked with lately where your genetics are at, or where you're gonna do a new drop soon in the future or anything?
Absolutely. So anybody looking to get my seeds, I'm telling you right now, Area 51 Seed Bank, they are going to
Okay.
be blowing up. Those guys are going to be huge. That'll be my number one. Area 51 for not just me, but a lot of people. But that seed bank's going to be dope. And then always my homies, Neptune Seed Bank, heavily
Neptune.
connected seeds. Those two guys as well. All three of those are probably going to be my top banks, and I'll probably end up. I mean, there's still a lot out there. If you're in Michigan, um, Jackson City Compassion Center. Uh, I think they're actually called the Seed Seller now.
Okay.
There's shoot. I mean, each state's got their own thing, but I mean, a quick Google search you could find. I mean, everyone's got their own seed bank that they're really, they're kind of dedicated to. They've had good success with, and they have certain, you know, payment options they're digging or whatever. But definitely those three I listed, man. If you want to check out some good stuff, they got all the new drops.
Tight. Tight. All right, dude. Well,
Yeah.
is there any questions you have left, Will?
That's it.
All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and do our outro dance. I really want to thank you for coming on the show, Eric.
Dude, thank you for having me. Appreciate it, bro.
I'm a huge fan of your work, dude. I'm gonna grab more packs as soon as I'm able to cultivate, man.
Awesome. We appreciate it, dude.
And
Thank you.
then anybody I come across who's growing, I try to tell them about you too. Like, this guy's got fire. Like, grab those seeds.
Well, good, dude. Yeah, I hope nothing but success with anyone that's growing our stuff. So,
No
thank you.
doubt. No doubt. Thanks, man. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the 24th episode of Concerned Dabs podcast. I was your host, Katie M. Kane. With me was my co-host, Will Terps. Our guest was Dungeons Vault Genetics. You can follow them on Instagram. It's Dungeons underscore Vault underscore Genetics. Correct?
That's it.
All right, yeah. So hit them up. I got to give a shout out to my guys in production, Mitchell Wilson and Jesse Curry. This has been a Main Node and Joseph Street Enterprise production.